Unit 16, Inside Story.
This is IBC News. Julian Snow, the missing Daily News reporter, was interviewed this morning by Dominic Beale of IBC News in Mandanga.
Julian, can you tell us how you were captured in the first place?
Well, I was on my way to visit a village near the front line. I came round a bend in the road, and there was a tree lying across the road. I only just managed to stop in time. Suddenly, armed men appeared on all sides.
What did you do?
What would you do? I just sat there with my hands in the air. Anyway, they made me get out of the Land Rover and made me lie on the ground. I thought, this is it, they're going to shoot me. I started saying my prayers.
What happened next?
Well, they searched me. Of course, I didn't have any weapons, just a camera. It's funny, they let me keep it. Then they tied my hands together and blindfolded me. Then they made me get in the back of a truck and lie under some sacks. I've no idea where they took me, except that it was quite a large training camp. I was there for 10 days.
Were you treated well?
Yes, I suppose I was. They let me walk about the camp, and they let me take photographs, but they wouldn't let me photograph any faces. I was able to interview some of the leaders.
How did you escape?
I didn't. They put me back in the truck, blindfolded me again, drove for a few hours, then made me get out, pointed me in the direction of town, and let me go.
And what exactly did the guerrilla leaders say about the situation?
Well, if you want to know that, you'll have to buy tomorrow's Daily News.
Unit 17, Preferences.
What are you doing tomorrow night?
Nothing. Why?
Well, do you like jazz?
Yes, I do, very much.
Which do you like best, modern or traditional?
I like both, really.
There's a weather report concert at the Hammersmith Odeon. Would you like to come?
Oh, yes, they're my favourite group.
Lisa, look over here. They've got a very good selection of Levi cords.
Oh, yes, and they got my size, too.
But only in navy blue and black. Which do you prefer?
I don't like either of them very much. I really wanted green.
They haven't got green in your size. Go on, try a pair on.
No, I prefer to look somewhere else.
Have you decided yet? What do you want to see?
A Moment of Peace is on at the Continental. I'd like to see that.
Would you really? Oh, I'd rather see War in Space.
Oh, no. The reviews were terrible.
I know, but it sounds fun. A Moment of Peace is in French, and I'd rather not have to read subtitles.
Then how about California Sunset?
I'd rather not. I can't stand Steve Newman.
Well, you choose.
I don't fancy any of them. I'd much rather stay in and watch TV.
What do you fancy?
I don't know. There isn't much choice, is there?
No, there isn't really. What would you rather have? Steak and kidney or plaice?
Can't make up my mind. I'd rather have a hamburger.
We can ask for the full menu if you like.
No, it's not worth it. I'll have the plaice.
Unit 18. Where have all the fans gone?
Good evening and welcome to the Michael Carcast Talkabout. In tonight's Talkabout, we're looking at the problem of soccer's missing millions. Since 1950, attendance at football matches has fallen by nearly 50%. Many clubs are in financial trouble, and tonight we hope to identify the major causes and discuss some possible solutions. First of all, we'll hear from one of soccer's lost millions, Mr. Bert Woods from London, who used to be a regular Chelsea supporter.
I stopped going 5 or 6 years ago. Rather stay at home, watch it on telly. You get a better view. And I like the action replays. I'm too afraid to go now, really. All this violence, you know. When I was a lad, there was the occasional fight on the terraces, but nothing like you see these days. Whole gangs of teenagers who aren't interested in football. Somebody ought to do something about it. These kids aren't real fans. They just come looking for trouble. The police ought to sort out the real fans from the troublemakers. You know, I always used to go with my dad, but I wouldn't take my kids. There's too much foul language. And I don't only blame the kids. There ought to be more discipline at home and in school.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Let's go over to Brian Huff, the manager of Eastfield United, one of our most successful clubs. Brian?
I sympathise with Mr. Woods, and there are plenty of people like him. Anyway, we better do something about it or we'll all go broke. The clubs and players must share the blame. Football's big business and it's very competitive. Winning has become the most important thing. There's too much violence on the field. Referees have to get tougher with players. They should send off players for deliberate fouls. The other problem is television. There's too much football on TV and they only show the most exciting parts, goals, fouls and violence. People are bored when they see the real game. Anyway, the clubs started talking about these problems 10 years ago and nothing's been done. We better not spend another 10 years talking. We better do something and do it soon.
Our next guest is a young fan, Kevin Dolan, a Manchester United supporter who is 16 years old. What do you think, Kevin?
Well, I'm not one of soccer's missing millions. I never miss a match. I've travelled all over the country with United, and I've never been in trouble. I blame the media for most of this violence. They only show young people when they're doing something wrong. They ought not to give so much publicity to troublemakers. It only encourages the others, doesn't it? The violence always starts when there's a TV camera near. If they banned alcohol from football grounds, there'd be much less trouble.
Thank you, Kevin. Our last speaker is Jimmy McTavish, the ex-Scotland striker, who has just returned from the United States after spending 2 years with Miami Galaxy. Well, Jimmy, what ought we to do?
I agree with a lot of what's been said, Michael, but hadn't we better look at some solutions? I've been playing in the States for the last 2 seasons, and I haven't seen any violence over there. A football match is a day out for the family. More than half the supporters are women and children, and there are much better facilities. Everybody gets a comfortable seat. There are good restaurants and there's entertainment before and after the game and at half-time. Football stadiums are old, cold and dirty over here. We'd better take a good look at American soccer. I think we've got a lot to learn. Entertainment is what football is all about and we'd better not forget it.
Unit 19. Night flight.
This is Captain Cook speaking. Our estimated time of arrival in Brisbane will be 1 a.m., so we've got a long flight ahead of us. I hope you enjoy it. Our hostesses will be serving dinner shortly. Thank you.
It was Christmas Eve, 1959, and the beginning of another routine flight. The hostesses started preparing the food trays. A few of the passengers were trying to get some sleep, but most of them were reading. There was nothing to see from the windows except the vast blackness of the Australian desert below. There was nothing unusual about the flight, except perhaps that the plane was nearly full. A lot of the passengers were travelling home to spend Christmas with their families. The hostesses started serving dinner. It was a smooth and quiet flight. The hostesses had finished collecting the trays, and they were in the galley putting things away when the first buzzers sounded. One of the hostesses went along the aisle to check. When she came back, she looked surprised. "It's amazing," she said. "Even on a smooth flight like this, 2 people have been sick." 20 minutes later, nearly half the passengers were ill, dramatically ill. Several were moaning and groaning, some were doubled up in pain, and 2 were unconscious. Fortunately, there was a doctor on board, and he was helping the hostesses. He came to the galley and said, "I'd better speak to the captain. This is a severe case of food poisoning. I think we'd better land as soon as possible." "What caused it?" asked one of the hostesses. "Well," replied the doctor, "I had the beef for dinner and I'm fine. The passengers who chose the fish are ill." The hostess led him to the flight deck. She tried to open the door. "I think it's jammed," she said. The doctor helped her to push it open. The captain was lying behind the door. He was unconscious. The co-pilot was slumped across the controls, and the radio operator was trying to revive him. The doctor quickly examined the two pilots. "They just collapsed," said the radio operator. "I don't feel too good myself." "Can you land the plane?" said the doctor. "Me? No, I'm not a pilot. We've got to revive them," he replied. "The plane's on automatic pilot. We're okay for a couple of hours." "I don't know," said the doctor. "They could be out for a long time." "I'd better contact ground control," said the radio operator. The doctor turned to the hostess. "Perhaps you should make an announcement. Try to find out if there's a pilot on board." "We can't do that," she said. "It'll cause a general panic." "Well, how the hell are we going to get this thing down?" said the doctor. Suddenly, the hostess remembered something. "One of the passengers. I overheard him saying that he'd been a pilot in the war. I'll get him." She found the man and asked him to come to the galley. "Didn't you say you used to be a pilot?" she asked. "Yes, why? The pilot's all right, isn't he?" She led him to the flight deck. They explained the situation to him. "You mean you want me to fly the plane?" he said. "You must be joking. I was a pilot, but I flew single-engine fighter planes, and that was 15 years ago. This thing's got 4 engines. Isn't there anybody else?" he asked. "I'm afraid not," said the hostess. The man sat down at the controls. His hands were shaking slightly. The radio operator connected him to air traffic control. They told him to keep flying on automatic pilot towards Brisbane and to wait for further instructions from an experienced pilot. An hour later, the lights of Brisbane appeared on the horizon. He could see the lights of the runway shining brightly beyond the city. Air traffic control told him to keep circling until the fuel gauge registered almost empty. This gave him a chance to get used to handling the controls. In the cabin, the hostesses and the doctor were busy attending to the sick. Several people were unconscious. The plane circled for over half an hour. The passengers had begun to realize that something was wrong. "What's going on? Why don't we land?" shouted a middle-aged man. "My wife's ill. We've got to get her to hospital." A woman began sobbing quietly. At last the plane started its descent. Suddenly there was a bump which shook the plane. "We're all going to die!" screamed a man. Even the hostesses looked worried as panic began to spread through the plane. "It's all right," someone said. "The pilot's just lowered the wheels, that's all." As the plane approached the runway, they could see fire trucks and ambulances speeding along beside the runway with their lights flashing. There was a tremendous thump as the wheels hit the tarmac, bounced twice, raced along the runway and screeched to a halt. The first airport truck was there in seconds. "That was nearly a perfect landing. Well done," shouted the control tower. "Thanks," said the man. "Any chance of a job?" Unit 20, The Junk Shop. Justin Wedgwood and Lenny Smith are antique dealers. They've got a very successful business. They travel around the country buying antique furniture and paintings from junk shops and from elderly people, and then they sell them from their shop in Kensington, a fashionable part of London. Today they're in a small Welsh town. Justin's just come out of a little junk shop, and he seems very excited.
Lenny, we're in luck. There's a painting in there, a landscape. It's a good one. I thought it might be valuable, so I had a good look at the signature. It isn't very clear. I think it may be a constable.
A constable? It can't be. They're all in art galleries. They're worth a fortune.
Well, someone found one 2 years ago. This might be another. It's dirty and it isn't in very good condition.
How much do you think it's worth?
I don't know. It may be worth 100,000. It might even be worth more.
Be careful, Justin. We better use the old trick.
Right. There's a chair in the window. It must be worth about £5. I'll offer the old lady 50 quid for it. She'll be so pleased that she won't think about the painting.
Don't say you want the painting. Say you want the frame, OK?
Fine. You'd better wait in the van. I'd rather do this on my own.
Justin, check the signature before you give her 50 quid for the chair.
Don't worry, Lenny. I know what I'm doing.
I'll be with you in a minute.
Hello. I'm interested in that chair in the window.
What? That old thing? It's been there for years.
Has it? It's very nice. I think it could be Victorian.
Really?
Yes, I think I'm right. I've seen one or two other chairs like it. I think I could get a good price for that in London. I'll offer you, £50.
50? You must be mad, man.
No, it's a fair price.
Well then, it's yours.
Here you are, then. £50. Goodbye. Oh, by the way, that painting's in a nice frame.
It's a nice picture, dear. Early 19th century, I've heard.
Oh, no, it can't be. I've seen lots like it. It must be 20th century. There's no market for them. Still, I could use the frame.
All right. How much will you give me for it?
How about £20?
Oh, no, dear. It must be worth more than that. It came from the big house on the hill.
Did it? Let me have another look at it. Yes, the frame is really nice. I'll give you 100.
Oh, dear. I don't know what to do. You see, I like that painting myself.
All right. 120. That's my final offer.
Shall we say 150?
Okay, it's a deal.
Shall I wrap it for you?
No, I've got the van outside. It was nice doing business with you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye, dear. Thank you. Owen!
Yes, my love?
I've sold another of your imitation constables. You'd better bring another one downstairs. If the paint's dry. The gentleman who bought it seemed very pleased with it.
Unit 21. Noisy neighbours.
Sidney? Sidney, wake up.
Yeah? What? What's the matter? Can't be 8 o'clock already.
No, it's 1:30. It's those people next door again. Listen.
Oh, yes. They must be having another party.
Listen to that. They must be waking up the whole street. And they've got 3 young children. They can't be sleeping through that noise. It's disgusting. Somebody should call the police. Sidney, wake up.
Yeah, I wasn't asleep, dear. They're all laughing. They must be having a good time. They never invite us, do they?
Sidney.
Yes, dear. What is it now?
Listen. They must be leaving.
Oh, thank goodness for that. Maybe we'll get some sleep.
I hope so. It's nearly 3 o'clock. Good night, dear.
Well, hell, they're having a row now.
I'm not surprised. They always have rows after parties.
Oh, they must be throwing the pots and pans again.
No, I think that was a plate, dear. Or maybe the television. They'll be sorry in the morning. Sidney, wake up.
Oh, what's that?
Can't be hammering at this time of night.
What time is it?
4 o'clock. What can they be doing at 4 o'clock in the morning?
I can't hear any voices. Go back to sleep, Sybil.
Sidney, listen. There's someone in the garden next door.
Must be the milkman.
No, it can't be. It's too early. It's only 4:45. Who could it be? You'd better have a look.
All right. Oh, it's Mr. Sykes. And he's carrying a spade.
Oh, no. You don't think he's killed her, do you?
Well, we haven't heard her voice for a while. You know she's probably sleeping.
But what can he be doing at this time of night?
If he has killed her, he might be burying the body.
What? You don't think so, do you?
Well, he can't be planting potatoes, can he? I suppose you want me to phone the police?
No. Ask him what he's doing first.
Hello there, Mr. Sykes. You're up early this morning?
I haven't been to bed yet. We had a party last night. Hope we didn't keep you awake.
Oh, no, we didn't hear anything. Nothing at all.
Well, it was a pretty noisy party. My wife knocked over the goldfish tank while we were clearing up. The poor fish died. I'm just burying them before the children wake up.
Unit 22. You're in the army now.
It's Saturday afternoon at Botherington Army Camp. The new recruits are supposed to be working, but they aren't. The colonel's away today and they're lazing around in the barracks. The sergeant major has just opened the door. He's brought the duty roster with him, so he knows exactly what each of them should be doing.
Hello, hello. What's going on here? Smith? What are you doing?
I'm listening to the radio, sir.
And what are you supposed to be doing, Smith?
I'm not sure, sir.
Well, let me tell you, Smith. You are supposed to be mowing the lawn.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, sir. It won't happen again, sir.
It had better not, Smith. And when I come back, Smith, you better be mowing that grass. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
This isn't a holiday camp. You're in the army, you know.
Unit 23. Migration.
One of the greatest mysteries of nature is the instinct to migrate. Every year, millions of creatures feel the need to move for one reason or another. Most of us have seen the arrival or departure of migrating flocks of birds. Migration, however, is not confined to birds, but can be seen in reptiles, for example, turtles, frogs, insects, butterflies, locusts, fish, eels, salmon, tunny, and mammals, reindeer, seals, lemmings, whales, bats. Many of these creatures succeed in navigating over long distances. How exactly they manage to do this still remains a mystery. There are several possibilities. They may navigate by using one or more of the following: the sun, the stars, the Earth's magnetic field. When a small bar magnet is attached to a pigeon, it is unable to navigate. A sense of smell. Geographical features. Birds flying from North Africa to France seem to follow coastlines and valleys. Changes in temperature. Salmon can detect a change in water temperature as small as 0.03 degrees centigrade. Sound. Whales and bats seem to use sonar. Experiments suggest that these navigational abilities are partly instinctive. In one famous experiment, a young seabird from the island of Stockholm off the Welsh coast was taken across the Atlantic by plane to Boston, 5,100 kilometers away. It was released and was back in its nest 12.5 days later. This seabird holds the record for long-distance migration. Arctic tern breed in northern Canada, Greenland, northern Europe, Siberia and Alaska. In late August, they set off on a 17,500-kilometer journey, which takes them south, past the west coasts of Europe and Africa, to the tip of southern Africa, 14,000 kilometers in 90 days. They then fly round to the Indian Ocean and down to Antarctica, where they spend the Antarctic summer. On the way back, they sometimes make a complete circuit of Antarctica before returning to their breeding grounds. The round trip is over 35,000 kilometres in 8 months, 240 kilometres a day when they're flying. The Arctic tern sees more hours of daylight than any other creature because it experiences 2 summers a year, one in the Arctic region and one in the Antarctic. These regions have almost constant daylight in summer. One tern, which was ringed in Norway as a chick, died in exactly the same place 27 years later. Presumably, it had made the journey 27 times. European freshwater eels, which look like snakes but are really fish, begin and end their lives in the Sargasso Sea, southeast of Bermuda. As eggs and larvae, they drift for 3 years towards Europe, changing both shape and colour as they reach the freshwater estuaries of European rivers. They spend the next 9 to 19 years in rivers, streams, lakes and ponds. As they approach old age, they seem to have an unexplained compulsion to return to the Sargasso Sea to breed. Many eels which have found their way into ponds and lakes come out of the water and travel overland, gliding through damp grass. When they reach the sea, they make their way to the Sargasso, where they breed and die. No eels make the journey twice. The eel has an acute sense of smell, which is used for navigation in local waters, but inherited memory seems the only explanation for their migration to the Sargasso. The brown lemming is a small mammal, 10 to 18 centimetres long, found all over northern Canada, Scandinavia and northern Russia. Lemmings usually make short annual migrations in spring, travelling by night and feeding and sleeping by day. Every 3 or 4 years, however, they make much longer migrations in large numbers. The lemming population seems to change over a 3 or 4 year cycle, from 1 lemming per 4 hectares to between 400 and 700 lemmings per 4 hectares. Migration seems to be a method of population control, and is most spectacular in the well-known mass suicides, where thousands of lemmings plunge over cliff tops into the sea and swim till they die of exhaustion. These mass suicides only occur infrequently, and then only in Norway, where mountains touch the sea. Nobody knows what makes them do it, but there are 2 theories. One is that migrating lemmings cross rivers and lakes and can't tell the difference between a river and the sea. The other, more interesting theory is that they are migrating towards ancient breeding grounds, which existed beneath the North Sea millions of years ago, when the sea level was lower.
Unit 24. Murder at Gurney Manor. Lord Gurney was found dead on the library floor of his country house in Norfolk. He had been shot 5 times. The police have been called. There are 6 people in the house, and they all heard the shots at about 9 o'clock. The police have taken statements and made the following notes about each of the 6 people. Read the notes and listen to the statements.
I was in my room. My bedroom's on the ground floor because I can't walk. I was reading. I heard the shots. There were 4 or 5. I wheeled myself into the hall. The door of the library was open. Miss Smart was standing in the doorway, screaming. Gillespie was standing at the French windows. The gun was on the floor by the body.
I was in the drawing room, writing some letters, job applications, actually. I heard the shots, ran across the hall. The library door was open. Poor dear Horace was lying in a pool of blood. I started screaming. Gillespie came in through the French windows. They were opened. Then Lady Agatha arrived. She didn't say a word. She just stared at me.
I was in the billiard room. I was practicing. Suddenly there were 5 shots. I thought it was Chivers shooting birds in the garden again. Then I heard a scream. It sounded like Celia, so I opened the connecting door to the library and saw Father lying there, Gillespie at the window, and Celia and Mother together in the main doorway. I couldn't believe my eyes.
I was by the lake fishing in my usual place. When I heard the shots, I hurried through the trees towards the house. I saw Gillespie running across the lawn towards the library. When I got there, everybody was in the room except Tom Giles, the gardener. Poor old Gurney was dead. I was absolutely sure he was dead. After all, I was in the army for 20 years.
I was taking my evening walk. I had just come out of the kitchen door. I was walking round the corner of the house when I heard shooting. I ran across the lawn to the French windows. I saw Lord Gurney's body and Miss Smart in the doorway.
I was working in the kitchen garden. I heard shots, but that's not unusual around here. Lord Gurney and the Major are very fond of shooting. And I heard lots of screaming and shouting, so I went into the house through the kitchen door to see what was happening. They were all there. I wasn't sorry. He deserved it. Everybody hated him.
Unit 25. Murder at Gurney Manor, Part 2. Inspector Marples is in charge of the case. Sergeant Watts is his assistant. They're in the library.
Where is everybody, Sergeant?
They're all in the drawing room, sir. Constable Dixon's with them. What do you think, sir?
It could have been any one of them, couldn't it? We don't know what skeletons are in the cupboard. May have been two of them together. Might even have been all of them. Nobody seems very sad.
No, sir. Lord Gurney was a very unpopular man in the village. Nobody liked him. It could have been an outsider.
No, Watts. It must have been one of them. Let's look at the evidence.
It seems to me that everybody has got a motive, sir, and nobody's got an alibi. They all say they were alone when it happened.
Yes, and there are no fingerprints on the gun.
Marples and Watts are discussing Lady Agatha.
It couldn't have been her, sir.
Why not, Watts?
Well, she's in a wheelchair. She can't move very fast. Anyway, they've been married for 35 years. Can't have been her.
Most murders are inside the family, Watts. And there is a door between her room and the library.
Oh, yes, sir. But it was locked.
Doors have keys, Watts.
But why would she want to kill him?
Miss Smart's a very attractive young woman. We don't know what was going on. She could have been jealous.
But, sir, he was over 60. He was old enough to be her father.
Ah, well, Watts. He was a good-looking man and very rich. What about the Major, Watts? He's a strange fellow.
I've been thinking about that. It can't have been him, sir.
Really? Why not?
Why would he need to fire 5 times? He was an army pistol champion. He could have killed him with one shot.
Maybe he did, Watts. Maybe he did.
I don't understand, sir.
There are a lot of things you don't understand, Watts. Perhaps he's more clever than he looks.
But there's no motive, sir.
There may have been. I mean, there was that scandal with the property company.
But he was at the lake, sir.
He might not have been, Watts. He's a pistol champion. He could have shot him from the trees and thrown the gun into the room.
Oh. Do you really think so, sir?
I don't know, Watts. It's just a theory.
Unit 27. Making a complaint.
Good morning, miss. I'd like to speak to the manager.
I am the manager, sir. How can I help you?
Oh, really? It's this radio. It doesn't work.
Did you buy it here?
Pardon? Of course I bought it here. Look, you switch it on, and nothing happens.
Could I see your receipt?
Receipt? I haven't got one.
Oh, you should have obtained a receipt when you bought it.
I probably did. I must have thrown it away.
Ah, well, have you got any other proof of purchase? The guarantee, for example.
No, it must have been in the box. I threw that away, too.
Oh, dear. You really ought to have kept it. We need to know the exact date of purchase.
What? I only bought it yesterday. That young man over there served me. Oh, I paid by cheque. I've got the cheque stub.
That's all right, then. Did you check the radio before you left the shop?
Check it? No, it was in the box. I expected it to work. It wasn't a cheap radio. It's a good make.
You should have checked it.
Come on, stop telling me what I should have done and do something. Either give me my money back or give me another radio.
There's no need to get aggressive, sir. Let me look at it. You see this little switch on the back?
Yes.
It's on mains, and it should be on battery. You really should have read the instructions.
Oh.